We cannot go on like this. The drought is too much. We cannot let the drought bring our spirit. We have the knowledge and the strength to overcome this. If we work together, our fields will be green again.
Long before fear learned the name of the people, there was a village called Lunara. It rested gently between open plains and low green hills, where the earth was red and rich, and the wind moved like a slow breath across the land. The people of Lunara lived simply, guided by tradition and bound by unity. At dawn, smoke rose from cooking fires in soft lines, and at dusk, drums echoed faintly as elders shared stories beneath the stars. Life in Lunara followed the rhythm of the land. When the rains came, the people planted together. When the harvest arrived, no one ate alone. Children belonged to everyone, and no hunger went unseen. The village was not protected by high walls or great weapons, but by trust. Trust in one another and trust in the spirits of their ancestors. For many seasons that trust was enough. But peace has a fragile heart. Lately something had begun to feel wrong. The wind no longer carried comfort. At night, it whispered through the trees with a warning tone, like a voice trying to speak but afraid to be heard. Hunters returned early from the forests, their eyes restless, their stories unfinished. Travelers who once passed through Lunara stopped coming, and the paths beyond the hills grew quiet. Too quiet. The elders noticed first. They gathered more often now, their faces serious, their voices low. They spoke of signs written in old memory, signs passed down through generations, meant to prepare the people for a time of great testing. Some called it a curse. Others called it war. A few spoke of betrayal, the kind that grows from inside before it destroys from outside. Most villagers tried not to listen. They believed fear had no place in Lunara. Still, the land itself seemed uneasy. Crops failed without reason. Rivers shrank before their time. Even the sky appeared heavier, darker, as if holding back something it could no longer carry. Among the elders' oldest stories was a prophecy rarely spoken aloud. It told of a season when Lunara would stand at the edge of darkness, when strength would fail and wisdom would hesitate, when survival would depend not on armies or kings, but on courage born in the most unexpected place. The prophecy spoke of a child, not a warrior's son, not a chief's heir, but a girl, ordinary in birth, overlooked in life. Many dismissed the story as legend, a lesson meant to teach humility. Yet as the days passed, the elders felt the weight of those words more deeply than ever before. They did not know when the darkness would arrive, only that it was coming. While the village slept under the illusion of safety, fate quietly moved through its narrow paths. It watched children play near the river. It listened to laughter around evening fires. And it paused, just briefly, near a small mud house at the edge of Lunara. Inside lived a young girl who woke each morning to work, not to destiny. She carried water, not weapons. She knew the names of plants, not battle cries. No one bowed when she passed. No one imagined her future would matter. Yet the land noticed her. The spirits noticed her. And as shadows stretched longer each night, the thread that held Lunara's future began to tighten. The village stood balanced between memory and loss, between hope and ruin. One wrong moment could tear everything apart. Unseen, unheard, and unprepared, the people of Lunara walked closer to the edge. And somewhere among them, a girl took her first steps toward a path she never asked for, but would one day have to walk alone. Before her name carried weight, before fear and hope followed her shadow, she was simply Asha. Asha woke each morning before the sun rose above the hills. The air was cool at that hour, and the village still slept as if wrapped in a gentle dream. She would sit up quietly, listening to the soft breathing of her younger brother beside her, and then step outside with an empty clay pot balanced against her hip. The path to the river was familiar. Her feet knew every stone, every curve of the land. Birds greeted her with early calls, and the tall grass brushed against her legs as if it knew her well. She liked these moments best, when the world felt calm and honest, before voices and duties filled the day. At the river, Asha moved with care. She watched the water closely, respecting its strength. Her mother had taught her that the river gave life, but only to those who honored it. As Asha filled her pot, she often spoke softly, thanking the land in words she had learned as a child. By the time she returned home, smoke already rose from nearby houses. The village was waking. Asha's mother was the quiet strength of their home. Her hands were rough from years of work, yet gentle when they rested on her children's heads. She rarely complained, even after losing her husband. Instead, she carried her grief like a heavy basket, balanced, steady, never dropped. Asha learned endurance by watching her. After breakfast, Asha helped grind grain, sweep the yard, and tend to small tasks others overlooked. She did them without anger but not without thought. She noticed everything: the way elders struggled to walk, the way hungry children stared at food meant for others, the way some voices were always louder simply because they belonged to men. When disputes broke out among the younger children, Asha often stepped in. She did not shout. She listened. Many times she gave away her own share of food to end an argument. Though she was small, there was a firmness in her eyes that made others pause. Some called her stubborn. Others called her strange. The boys her age trained with wooden spears under the watchful eyes of warriors. Asha watched from a distance, hidden behind trees or baskets, studying their movements. She never joined them. Girls were not meant to. Everyone knew that. Once, when a boy fell during training and began to cry, the others laughed. Asha ran forward without thinking. She helped him stand, brushed the dust from his knees, and walked him home. Later that day she was scolded, not for helping but for stepping into a place that was not meant for her. "You should know your place," an elder told her. Asha lowered her head, but inside something stirred. She loved the stories told at night. Stories of ancestors who faced darkness with courage. She listened carefully, asking questions that made elders uncomfortable. Why did only men become warriors? Why were girls never named in the songs of battle? Some elders laughed it off. Others warned her not to think too much. But Asha could not stop thinking. She felt deeply connected to Lunara. She felt its pain when crops failed and its joy during harvest. When the wind changed, she noticed. When fear passed through the village like a shadow, she felt it before words were spoken. Despite her quiet nature, Asha did not fear speaking up when something felt wrong. When an old woman was pushed aside in the market, Asha stood beside her. When children were blamed for mistakes made by adults, Asha defended them, even when it brought punishment. Still, the village saw her as only a girl. Too young to lead. Too soft to fight. Too small to matter. But innocence does not mean weakness. Asha's courage was not loud. It did not demand attention. It lived in small choices, in quiet moments, in the refusal to look away when others did. She carried no weapon, yet her heart already leaned toward protection. At night, as she lay beside her brother, she often stared at the stars through the doorway. She wondered what her life would become. She did not dream of glory or praise. She dreamed of safety. Of a future where her brother would grow without fear. Where her mother would rest without worry. She did not know that her innocence was a season that would soon end. For the land was watching her closely now. And the girl who carried water at dawn was already standing at the edge of a much greater path. One that would demand more than she had ever imagined, and would soon take everything she loved. The night the darkness arrived, it did not come with warning drums or angry skies. It came quietly. Asha was asleep beside her younger brother when the smell reached her first, sharp, bitter smoke cutting through the cool night air. At first she thought it was a cooking fire left burning too long. Then she heard it. A distant scream. Then another. And another. Her eyes flew open. Outside, shadows moved where shadows did not belong. Before she could think, Asha pulled her brother close and shook him awake. Her heart pounded as she listened. The peaceful sounds of Lunara were gone, replaced by chaos. Feet running, wood breaking, voices filled with fear. Fire burst into the night. Huts at the far end of the village were already burning, flames climbing the walls like living things. Smoke rolled through the paths, blinding and choking. People ran past Asha's doorway, some screaming names, others clutching children or wounds. "Asha!" Her mother's voice cut through the noise, sharp with fear. Asha pushed her brother toward the back of the house, toward the narrow path that led to the fields. Her mother grabbed a cloth, tying it around her head, her movements fast but shaking. "Stay together," she told them, her voice firm despite the terror in her eyes. They stepped outside, and the night exploded around them. Men with covered faces stormed through the village. Their weapons glinted in the firelight. They moved with purpose, not like thieves but like hunters. Anyone who resisted was struck down. Anyone who fell was left behind. Asha's hand was tight around her brother's wrist. Her heart raced so loudly she thought it would give her away. They ran. The path was filled with people but also with danger. Asha tried to keep her family close, but panic broke all order. Someone crashed into them. Another fell at their feet. In the confusion, Asha felt her brother's hand slip from hers for one terrifying moment. She grabbed him back just in time. Then everything went wrong. A figure burst from the smoke, swinging a weapon wildly. Asha froze, her breath caught in her chest. Her mother reacted without thought. She stepped forward, pushing Asha and the boy behind her. There was a sharp sound. A heavy fall. Asha screamed. Her mother collapsed onto the ground, blood darkening her clothes. The attacker was already gone, swallowed by smoke and fire. For a moment the world stood still. Asha dropped beside her mother, shaking, calling her name again and again. Her mother's eyes were open but distant. Her hand reached for Asha's face, weak but gentle as it always had been. Then it fell. The scream that tore from Asha's chest felt like it split the night in two. Someone pulled her away. She did not know who. She fought, kicking and crying, but strong hands carried her brother and dragged Asha toward the fields. Behind them Lunara burned. By morning the attackers were gone. What remained was silence. Smoke rose from blackened homes. Bodies lay where they had fallen. Survivors moved slowly like ghosts, their faces empty with shock. Children cried without being answered. Mothers searched through ash for sons who would never return. Asha sat on the ground beside her mother's body, unable to move. Her brother leaned against her, silent and trembling. The sun rose, warm and bright, as if mocking the grief below it. The elders gathered, fear heavy in their eyes. They spoke in low voices, arguing, blaming, trembling. Some said the village should flee. Others insisted the spirits would protect them if they waited. No decision was made. Asha listened, her hands clenched into fists. She felt guilt crash over her like a wave. If she had run faster. If she had chosen a different path. If she had been stronger. Her mind replayed the moment again and again, each time cutting deeper. Anger followed grief. Anger at the attackers. Anger at the elders who had ignored the signs. Anger at herself for being small and helpless. The village buried its dead that day. Songs were sung with broken voices. The ground received bodies faster than it ever had before. When Asha placed earth over her mother's grave, her hands shook so badly she could barely stand. Something inside her shifted then. The girl who believed kindness alone could protect them began to fade. In her place grew a burning need, to understand, to prepare, to never again stand powerless while those she loved were taken. That night, as the fires died and fear settled deep into Lunara's bones, Asha did not sleep. She stared into the darkness, her heart heavy with loss. And in that silence, the first seed of transformation took root. After the night of fire and blood, Lunara never truly slept again. The days that followed were filled with quiet fear. People spoke less. Laughter vanished from the paths. Doors were closed earlier, and children were kept close, as if the darkness might reach out and pull them away at any moment. Asha moved through the village like a shadow. She did what was expected of her, helped with the wounded, shared food with those who had lost everything, cared for her brother, but inside her heart burned with restless thought. Every cracked wall, every burned hut, reminded her that the attack was not over. It was only the beginning. The elders met again and again beneath the old meeting tree. Their voices carried worry but no answers. Some said the attackers would not return. Others believed they should wait for signs from the ancestors. A few suggested leaving Lunara behind, abandoning the land their people had lived on for generations. Waiting, Asha thought bitterly, had already cost them too much. As days passed, the threat grew clearer. Scouts returned with news that chilled the village. The attackers were not wandering raiders. They were organized. They were building camps beyond the hills. They were watching Lunara, learning its paths, its weaknesses. Fear spread like sickness. Families began hiding food. Some sharpened tools into poor weapons. Others whispered of surrender, believing survival was better than resistance. The unity Lunara once prided itself on began to crack. Asha saw it all. She watched children flinch at every sound. She saw strong men avoid each other's eyes. She felt the weight of unspoken dread pressing down on everyone. And each night, when her brother slept beside her, she promised herself he would not grow up afraid, if she had anything to say about it. The pain of her mother's death had not faded. It had hardened. It pushed Asha to look where others refused. She walked the damaged edges of the village, studied the broken paths, and remembered every story the elders once told about past wars and forgotten defenses. Finally, she could no longer remain silent. Asha approached the elders during one of their meetings. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. She spoke of the signs they had ignored. She warned them that waiting would bring only more graves. She urged them to prepare, to change, to face the truth. The elders listened, but they did not hear her. Some shook their heads. Others frowned. A few looked away in discomfort. "She is a child," one said. "She speaks from grief, not wisdom," another added. "This is not a matter for girls," a third muttered. Asha felt the words strike her harder than any blow. She turned to the warriors next, hoping they might understand. She told them what she had seen, what she feared. But they dismissed her as well. They trusted old methods, old strength, old pride. They did not see how the enemy had changed. That night, Asha sat alone near the river. The water flowed calmly, unaware of the storm inside her. She remembered her mother's face, her quiet strength, her final act of protection. She remembered the screams, the fire, the helplessness. And she realized something painful and clear. If she stayed silent, more people would die. The thought terrified her. Acting meant danger. It meant leaving the safety of what she knew. It meant risking failure, punishment, even death. But doing nothing felt worse. Doing nothing felt like betrayal. As the moon rose, Asha made her decision. She would not wait for permission. She would not wait for someone else to save them. If Lunara was to survive, she would have to change, and she would have to begin that change herself. The path ahead was forbidden. Girls were not trained as warriors. Ancient knowledge was guarded closely, spoken only to chosen men. Those who disobeyed tradition faced exile or worse. Asha knew all this. Still she stood. When she returned home, she packed little, only what she could carry without notice. She kissed her brother's forehead as he slept, her heart breaking at the thought of leaving him unprotected. Tears fell silently, but her resolve did not waver. This was not courage born of pride. It was courage born of love. As dawn approached, Asha stepped away from her home, her feet heavy but steady. She did not know what awaited her beyond the hills. She did not know if she would return. But she knew one thing with painful certainty. The call to act had reached her, and she could not ignore it. Asha walked beyond the hills before the sun had fully risen. The land changed as she moved farther from Lunara. The soft paths of the village gave way to rough ground and tangled brush. Stones cut into her bare feet and thorns caught at her clothes, but she did not slow down. Each step felt like a line crossed, away from safety, away from the life she had known. She followed the oldest stories she could remember. As a child, she had listened closely when elders spoke of a place few dared to name. A place where warriors were once tested, where strength was shaped by pain and discipline. Over time, fear had wrapped itself around those stories, turning the place into something forbidden. By midday, Asha reached it. Tall stone pillars rose from the earth like broken teeth, covered in carvings worn smooth by time. The air felt heavy, silent in a way that made her chest tighten. This was no ordinary ground. This was a place that remembered struggle. Asha hesitated. For the first time since leaving Lunara, doubt crept in. She was tired, hungry, afraid. A voice inside her whispered that she did not belong here, that she was foolish, that she should turn back before it was too late. Then she remembered her mother's body on the ground. She stepped forward. At the center of the stone stood a small hut, barely standing, its roof dark with age. Smoke drifted from its opening. Someone lived here. Asha approached slowly, her heart racing. From the shadows emerged an old woman, bent with years but sharp-eyed. Her hair was gray and wild, her face marked by deep lines carved by time and hardship. This was Nyara. Once, long ago, Nyara had been a warrior of Lunara. She had fought with strength and wisdom, but when she challenged unjust leaders and questioned old ways, she was cast out. Over time, her name faded into rumor and warning. Nyara studied Asha in silence. Asha lowered her head, showing respect, then lifted her eyes. She did not beg. She did not boast. She spoke of the village, of the attacks, of her mother's death. Her words were simple, but they carried weight. When she finished, Nyara turned away. "You are not ready," the old woman said at last. "And you are not welcome." The rejection burned. But Asha did not leave. She stayed near the stones that night, curled against the cold ground. Hunger gnawed at her stomach. Fear kept her awake. Still she remained. At dawn, Nyara found her there. Days passed. Asha helped without being asked, fetching water, gathering wood, cleaning the area. She endured silence, sharp glances, and harsh words. Each test was meant to break her will. It did not. Finally, Nyara spoke again. "If you stay, you will suffer," she warned. "Your body will fail you. Your heart will ache. You may leave broken." Asha nodded. She already was broken. Training began without ceremony. The first lessons were not about weapons. They were about balance, breath, and awareness. Nyara forced Asha to stand in the heat for hours, to listen to the wind, to feel the ground beneath her feet. When Asha grew impatient, she was punished with harder tasks. Her body protested loudly. She fell. She scraped her skin. Her muscles screamed. Some nights, she cried alone, pressing her face into the dirt so no one could hear her. Nyara did not comfort her. Instead, she reminded Asha that pain was a teacher. That strength without understanding led only to destruction. That warriors were not born, they were shaped by discipline and purpose. When weapons were finally introduced, they felt heavy and unfamiliar. Asha's hands blistered. Her arms trembled. Each mistake earned sharp correction. Nyara demanded focus, patience, and humility. There were moments Asha wanted to run. Memories haunted her training. The sound of fire. Her mother's fall. The fear in her brother's eyes. Sometimes her hands shook so badly she could barely hold a weapon. Nyara watched closely. One evening, as the sun bled red across the sky, Asha collapsed, unable to rise. She expected anger. Instead, Nyara sat beside her. "Why are you here?" the old woman asked. Asha thought of many answers. Revenge, anger, fear. But the truth rose quietly. "I don't want to be helpless again." Nyara nodded. From that day the training changed. It grew harsher but also deeper. Nyara taught Asha how to move with intention, how to read an enemy before a strike, how to conserve strength instead of wasting it. She taught her the old rituals, moments of silence before battle, respect for life even when taking it became necessary. Asha's body began to change. Her movements grew sharper, her eyes more focused. But the greatest change was inside. She no longer trained only with anger. She trained with purpose. Each day the girl who carried water faded a little more. In her place stood someone stronger, more aware of the cost of power. Asha did not yet call herself a warrior, but she was no longer just a girl. And the path she had chosen would not allow her to turn back. The days at the sacred training ground no longer followed the rhythm of the sun. For Asha, time became pain, breath, and movement. Nyara pushed her harder than before. The lessons grew sharper, more dangerous. What had once been slow training turned into relentless trials. Asha ran across rocky ground until her legs gave out. She practiced strikes until her arms felt like stone. She learned to fall, to rise, and to fight even when her vision blurred with exhaustion. Pain became her constant companion. Some mornings Asha woke unable to move. Her muscles screamed in protest, her wounds burned, and her hands shook as she tried to grip her weapon. Fear whispered to her in those moments, telling her she was not strong enough, that she would fail like so many before her. But Nyara showed no mercy. "The enemy will not wait for you to feel ready," she said. "Neither should you." Asha learned quickly that strength alone was not enough. Nyara set traps for her, forcing her to think under pressure. She taught her how fear clouded judgment, how hesitation could cost lives. Each mistake brought consequences. Each failure was followed by another test. At night, Asha dreamed of Lunara. She saw the burned huts. She heard her mother's final breath. She saw her brother standing alone, calling her name. Sometimes she woke screaming. Other times, tears fell silently as she stared into the darkness. Nyara never asked about the dreams. Instead, she gave Asha heavier burdens to carry. As weeks passed, word of Asha's absence reached Lunara. Some believed she had run away. Others whispered that she had brought a curse upon herself. Only a few wondered where she had gone, and why. One of those few was Kito, a boy Asha had grown up with. He had always admired her quiet strength, even when others laughed at her. When fear began to consume the village, Kito followed rumors beyond the hills. He found Asha by accident. The reunion was not joyful. Kito watched her train from a distance, shock written across his face. The girl he remembered was gone. In her place stood someone hardened by struggle, moving with a focus that frightened him. When he finally revealed himself, Asha froze. For a moment she was not a trainee or a fighter. She was a girl facing a piece of her past. Kito begged her to come home. He told her the village was falling apart, that the elders feared her defiance, that some believed the attacks were punishment for breaking tradition. His words cut deep. Fear crept back into Asha's heart, not fear of pain, but fear that she was hurting the very people she wanted to protect. Nyara listened from afar. That night, Nyara warned her. "The path you walk is lonely. Those you love may not understand it. Some may try to stop you." Asha nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. The next morning, everything changed. Warriors from Lunara arrived at the training ground. They had followed Kito. Anger burned in their eyes as they confronted Nyara and Asha. They accused Nyara of corruption and Asha of betrayal. They spoke of broken rules and dishonored traditions. Asha stood silent as blame fell upon her like stones. She searched Kito's face, hoping for understanding. Instead she saw fear. Kito had meant to help, but his fear had led others straight to her. That realization hurt more than any wound. The elders ordered Asha to return immediately. They demanded she abandon her training and accept punishment for disobedience. They claimed her actions had drawn danger closer to the village. Asha's heart twisted. She wanted to scream that she was trying to save them, that she had given everything, blood, pain, sleepless nights, for Lunara. But the words stayed trapped inside her. Nyara stepped forward. She chose this path, the old woman said calmly, and she has paid for every step. The warriors did not listen. In the chaos that followed, a fight broke out, not with weapons but with anger and fear. One careless move caused a collapse among the stone pillars. A young warrior was injured badly. The blame fell instantly on Asha. See what she brings? Someone shouted. Pain follows her. The words struck like poison. The warriors left, carrying their wounded and their anger back to Lunara. Before leaving, they warned Asha never to return. Silence followed. Asha dropped to her knees. This was not how it was supposed to be. She had accepted pain, hunger, and fear. But this rejection, was unbearable. Her chest felt tight, her breath shallow. For the first time since leaving Lunara, she considered giving up. What is the point, she whispered, if they hate me for trying? Nyara stood beside her. Leadership is not chosen by love, she said. It is chosen by responsibility. Asha looked up, tears in her eyes. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Nyara nodded. Intent does not erase consequence. That truth cut deeply. The days that followed were the hardest yet. Nyara pushed Asha beyond her limits, as if testing whether she would break completely. Every movement hurt. Every memory weighed heavy. But something inside Asha began to harden, not into bitterness but into resolve. She realized that the path of protection was not clean or praised. It was filled with mistakes, misunderstandings, and sacrifice. And if she turned back now, all the pain would be meaningless. She trained harder. She learned to carry guilt without letting it destroy her. She learned that fear could be faced, not avoided. And she learned that betrayal, though painful, did not have to define her purpose. By the end of that season, Asha stood taller. Her body bore scars, but her eyes were steady. She had been tested by pain. She had been shaken by fear. She had been wounded by betrayal. And still she stood. The girl she once was had not survived these trials. But something stronger had taken her place. Courage rarely arrives alone. It brings consequences. Not long after the warriors from Lunara returned home, the price of Asha's choices was revealed. The enemy struck again, this time with greater force and cruel precision. They moved as if guided by knowledge, as if someone had shown them where to hurt the village most. Huts burned. Food stores were destroyed. The sick and the elderly were left with no shelter. Though the attackers did not stay long, they left behind devastation deeper than before. When the survivors gathered, fear turned quickly into anger. Whispers spread through Lunara like wildfire. Some said the attacks had worsened because Asha had broken sacred rules. Others claimed the ancestors were angry, punishing the village for allowing a girl to challenge tradition. Grief needed someone to blame, and Asha's name was easy to speak. No one told her directly. She felt it in the silence. When Asha returned secretly to the edge of Lunara to check on her brother, she saw the damage with her own eyes. The place she loved looked wounded and weak. Faces once warm now turned away when they sensed her presence. Her brother ran to her, thin and shaken, clinging to her as if afraid she might disappear again. Holding him nearly broke her resolve. She wanted nothing more than to take him far away, to choose safety over sacrifice. But the village needed more than escape. Asha learned the truth from an elder who still remembered her kindness. A group of villagers had been taken during the raid, among them children. The attackers had sent a message. If Lunara resisted again, they would return to finish what they started. The weight of responsibility crushed Asha's chest. She knew, with painful clarity, that the attackers had learned of Lunara through the chaos she had helped create. Not through malice, but through fear, rumors, and broken unity. Her courage had drawn attention. That night, Asha made a decision no one asked her to make. Before dawn, she approached the enemy camp alone. She did not carry her weapon openly. She carried herself with calm purpose, knowing there was little chance of return. She offered herself in exchange for the captives, hoping her surrender would buy Lunara time to prepare, to heal, to unite. The enemy laughed, but they accepted. The captives were released, stumbling back toward Lunara as Asha was taken away. From the hilltop, some villagers watched in silence as she disappeared into the shadows. No one followed her. By the time news spread of what she had done, anger shifted into shame. But shame did not bring her back. Asha endured cruelty during her captivity, mockery, chains, and pain meant to break her spirit. Each moment tested her will. Each breath reminded her how fragile life truly was. She did not scream. She thought of her mother, of her brother's arms around her, of Lunara standing broken but still alive. Days later, she was left for dead at the edge of the land. When she finally crawled free and returned, weak and bleeding, the village barely recognized her. She looked less like a savior and more like a curse made flesh. Some villagers spat near her feet. Others whispered that death followed wherever she walked. The elders refused to meet her eyes. Asha collapsed alone beneath the old meeting tree, her body shaking with exhaustion and grief. Everything she had done, every sacrifice, felt wasted. She had trained to protect them, and yet destruction followed her steps. This was her lowest moment. She had lost her mother. She had lost her innocence. Now she had lost her people's trust. As night fell, Asha stared into the darkness, her heart heavy with a question that would not leave her. Was courage worth this cost? The silence offered no answer. Only pain. Asha did not know how long she lay beneath the old meeting tree. Time lost its meaning. Pain pulsed through her body with every breath, sharp and constant. Her wounds burned, and the weight of rejection pressed harder than the chains she had worn in captivity. Around her, the village slept, but to Asha, Lunara felt farther away than ever. She had given everything, and still she had failed. When dawn came, its light felt cruel. It revealed her broken state, her torn clothes, her bruised skin. Villagers passed by without stopping. Some did not look at her at all. Others stared with fear as if she were a living reminder of disaster. Asha closed her eyes. For the first time since her mother's death, she allowed herself to fully break. Tears fell freely, soaking the dry earth beneath her. She did not try to be strong. She did not hide her pain. She mourned the girl she once was, the child who believed goodness alone could protect the people she loved. That girl was gone. As the sun climbed higher, Asha struggled to her feet and walked away from the village. No one followed. No one called her name. Lunara had turned its back on her. She walked until the land grew quiet and open, until there were no paths to guide her. Exhaustion finally forced her to stop near a sacred grove, a place the elders once said was watched by ancestral spirits. Asha collapsed at its center. The world faded. In her weakness, memories returned, not in pain but in clarity. She saw her mother's face, not as it had been in death, but as it was in life. Calm, steady, strong without cruelty. She remembered Nyara's lessons. The pain, the discipline, the truth that strength without purpose was destruction. For the first time, Asha understood. Her fight had begun in anger and grief. She had wanted to stop the pain by any means. But that path had brought more suffering. This was her rebirth. In the silence of the grove, Asha let go of revenge. She released her need for approval, her desire to be seen as a hero. She accepted that protection did not mean being loved. It meant standing firm when love failed. She gathered water from the stream and washed her wounds slowly, deliberately, as if shedding the last pieces of her former self. Each movement hurt, but she welcomed it. Pain reminded her that she was still alive, and that her purpose was not finished. Asha performed the old ritual Nyara had taught her but never explained fully. She knelt, pressed her forehead to the ground and spoke her vow, not to the people, not to herself, but to the land. She would fight not out of anger but out of duty. She would protect without demanding praise. She would carry the burden alone if she must. When she rose, something inside her was different. The fear that once ruled her thoughts was gone. In its place stood calm resolve. Her movements were slower, more deliberate. Her eyes, once searching for approval, now looked forward with purpose. The girl who had cried beneath the meeting tree no longer existed. What stood in her place was a warrior, not shaped by victory but by loss. Asha returned to Lunara at dusk. This time she did not hide. She walked openly through the village, her posture strong despite her injuries. People watched her pass, uncertain. She did not speak. She did not explain herself. Actions would speak for her now. That night, as she sharpened her weapon by firelight, the prophecy whispered through memory, not as a warning but as confirmation. The unexpected soul had risen, not through power or praise but through pain and clarity. Asha had died. And in her place, the warrior had been born. The storm ahead would be fierce. But she was ready to face it. Lunara had not healed. The scars of fear still lay heavy on the village. Empty homes, broken fences, fields left unattended. People moved slowly, cautiously, as if any sudden sound might bring disaster back to their doorsteps. Trust had withered, replaced by quiet survival. Asha saw it clearly. She did not begin by calling meetings or raising her voice. She understood now that broken people did not respond to speeches. They responded to presence. At dawn, she helped rebuild a fallen roof without being asked. She carried water for the elderly. She guarded the village perimeter through the night while others slept. She trained alone in the open, not to display strength, but to remind the people that someone was still standing watch. At first, they only watched her from a distance. Whispers followed her path. Some still blamed her for provoking the enemy. Others feared what she had become. But slowly, hesitation turned into attention. Attention into curiosity. Children were the first to come closer. They sat near the training ground, quiet and wide-eyed, watching her movements, controlled, purposeful, calm. Asha did not chase them away. She let them see discipline without cruelty, strength without rage. Then came the elders. They did not apologize. Pride would not allow it. But they asked questions, careful ones. About defenses. About patrols. About what the enemy might do next. Asha answered honestly. She did not promise safety. She promised preparation. Truth, she had learned, was the strongest foundation. One evening, when the moon hung low and red, Asha finally spoke to the village as a whole. Not from the center platform, but from the ground among them. She did not ask them to follow her. She asked them to remember who they were. She reminded them of the stories they once told, the ones about endurance, about people who survived not because they were stronger than others, but because they stood together when fear tried to divide them. Her words were steady, not fiery. She spoke of loss without blame, of fear without shame, of courage not as something loud, but as something quiet and shared. Some wept openly. Others lowered their heads. Asha did not stop them. Healing, she knew, began with honesty. In the days that followed, change took root. Slowly, unevenly, but it came. Young men and women asked her to train them, not to become warriors, but to learn how to defend their homes. She taught them awareness before weapons, unity before strength. She broke old hierarchies, pairing the strong with the fearful, the confident with the hesitant. She reminded them that survival was not the work of heroes, it was the work of communities. Mistakes were made. Fear resurfaced. Arguments flared. Asha did not rule with force. She listened. She corrected. She stood firm when needed and stepped back when others had to find their own courage. For the first time in a long while, Lunara felt alive, not safe but awake. One night, as the village fires burned brighter than they had in months, an elder approached Asha quietly. His voice trembled as he admitted what many had not yet said aloud. They had been wrong. Asha did not accept the apology. She accepted responsibility. Leadership, she had learned, was not about being right, it was about carrying the weight others could not. She took no title, no ceremonial mark. Her authority came not from tradition, but from trust earned step by step. The village began to change how it saw her. Not as the girl who brought trouble. Not even as the warrior who endured pain. But as the one who stayed. As danger loomed once more on the horizon, Lunara was no longer a collection of frightened souls. It was a people remembering how to stand, together, uncertain but no longer broken. And at the heart of it stood Asha, quiet, unyielding, ready. The true battle was coming. This time they would not face it alone. The dawn arrived heavy with smoke and tension. Lunara's villagers stood along the ridge, their faces pale but determined. Children were hidden safely behind walls and brush. Warriors, some trained by Asha, others long and used to fighting, lined the village perimeter. Every eye turned toward the distant hill, where the enemy gathered like a dark cloud, ready to descend. Asha stood at the front, her heart steady. The girl who once carried water at dawn had been replaced by a warrior forged in loss and fire. Her hands rested on her weapon, but her mind carried far heavier burdens. The lives of her people, the scars of the past, and the hope for the future. The enemy advanced, their numbers greater than any the village had faced. Their leader was known for cruelty, a man whose eyes seemed to measure fear like a prize. He had learned Lunara's weaknesses and exploited them, but he had not counted on the resolve that now ran through its defenders. Asha raised her hand. Silence fell over the ridge. "We fight not for glory," she called out, her voice carrying like steel through the morning air. "We fight because we must. We fight because our people are worth more than fear." The villagers answered with a unified shout, not loud but full of courage. The first clash was chaos incarnate. Spears met shields, arrows whistled through the air, and the ground shook under the stamp of feet. Asha moved among them, guiding the hesitant, standing between the vulnerable and the enemy. Her presence alone inspired focus. Her calm energy reminded others that panic was their enemy too. Amid the battle, Asha faced the enemy leader. He towered over her, his weapon raised. She felt the pull of fear, a shadow from the past, but it passed. Memories of her mother, of Nyara, of her fallen people fueled her. They fought with skill and ferocity. Each strike was met with a counter, each step measured with care. Pain flared as she blocked a blow to her side, blood staining her clothes, but she did not falter. She fought not out of anger but for the lives depending on her. Around them the village pushed forward. The young warriors Asha had trained moved with surprising coordination. Arrows found their marks. Shields held firm. Unity, she realized, was the most powerful weapon of all. The battle reached its crescendo when the enemy attempted to breach the village center. Asha intercepted them, her movements a dance of precision and purpose. The leader faltered, and in that moment she struck, not for vengeance but to protect. The enemy's formation broke. Confusion spread. Panic replaced arrogance. Lunara's defenders pressed forward, reclaiming ground that had been lost months ago. But victory demanded sacrifice. Several warriors fell, and even Asha was wounded. She felt every loss keenly, each one a reminder of the cost of courage. The leader, defeated, fled into the hills, leaving his forces scattered and broken. When the fighting ended, silence returned, not the silence of fear but of exhaustion and reflection. The village had survived. The enemy had retreated. Asha stood amid the rubble, bloodied and bruised, her weapon heavy in her hands. She looked around at her people, faces marked by struggle yet alive, united and free. The weight of survival pressed down on her, yet she felt something she had not in months: hope. The battle was over, but the scars remained. The cost of courage was clear, yet so was its worth. Every life saved, every child protected, every person standing now was a testament to what she had endured, and what they had endured together. Asha's eyes lifted to the horizon. The future was uncertain, but for the first time she knew it could be met with strength, not fear. The warrior within her had been tested, and the village too. Lunara had survived, and they would endure. The fires had faded, leaving behind charred earth and broken homes, but the land itself seemed to breathe again. Slowly, Lunara began to heal. Children's laughter returned to the paths, hesitant at first, like seedlings pushing through ash. Families rebuilt their homes, shared meals, and tended to fields left untended for too long. Asha walked among them, no longer just a girl, no longer only a warrior. She moved quietly, offering guidance when asked, letting the people make choices for themselves. She had learned that true leadership was not about command, it was about presence, about carrying the burden while allowing others to reclaim their strength. At the center of the village, the old meeting tree stood scarred but steadfast, a silent witness to everything that had passed. Asha pressed her hand to its bark, thinking of those she had lost, the battles fought, and the sacrifices made. Each life saved, each choice made in the face of fear, carried a weight she could never forget. She chose forgiveness over bitterness. To dwell on anger would only poison the future she had fought to protect. Instead, she honored the fallen by living fully, guiding Lunara with the same quiet courage that had carried her through the darkest nights. Stories of her deeds spread slowly beyond the village, tales of a brave girl who became a warrior to save her people. Over time, children asked to hear them. Elders nodded with quiet respect. And the land itself seemed to whisper the truth. True strength is born not from power alone, but from love, sacrifice, and the courage to stand when all seems lost. Asha looked toward the horizon. The storms would come again, always, but Lunara and the people she loved would endure. And so would she.